Nexus. And yes, hello and welcome to Nexus Drafthouse, episode 44. I am Sahara Drac of StormLegacy.com, and you have come to a place where we talk about drafting a lot. Drafting is a crucial element of any game, and we are here to help you better understand pro drafting and also help you draft better in your own games. We are joined here tonight by my little pamplemousse, Lord of Ascension, Ryan Tower. There he is.
Oh,
He's so cute. He's
no,
a cutie.
no, I'm an apricot, not.
Oh, you're an apricot. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
That's grapefruit in French.
Yeah.
Why are we okay?
LaCroix.
Look, just don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's a thing.
And that is
I had a snake named Pamplemousse once.
nice. We were arguing about LaCroix flavors, and yeah. We are joined by Justin Foster, CavalierGuest himself. Hi, sir.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Not bad. Not
All
bad.
right, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Excellent.
Coming to the end of a long week. It's always a rewarding feeling when you're like, I made it through the week.
Yes, you actually survived another one.
Agreed. No, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Ryan's a working man too, so you know.
Yeah.
He is big time. But yeah, tonight on Nexus Drafthouse, we are going to be taking two drafts on Infernal Shrines, both from teams who just qualified for their first HGC run out of the Crucible. We're going to be looking at the Leftovers in Europe and Heroes Hearth in NA, a team with Crowan, Arthlon, people.
BBJ, McIntyre.
McIntyre, that's the one.
Ishbu.
Ishbu.
Ishbu, yes.
Ishbu.
I knew there was another one that was a well-known name that I was forgetting, but yes. So, Infernal Shrines. Let's just dig into it, shall we?
I love talking about Infernal Shrines.
It's my favorite map. This is my favorite map to play.
Good one.
I just love it. I think it's fun. I like the way it flows. I like the distribution of mercs and their influence on the map's outcome, things like that. And it was a very, very popular map at the pro level for a long time. It's fallen off a little. Some teams don't play it now. It used to be like everybody played that map, but not so much right now. What do you think these amateur teams liked about Infernal Shrines?
Well, this was game one for Heroes Hearth versus Even in Death, and it was Even in Death maps pick, and I think Even in Death picked it because it is such a pro-centric map, which means they probably have more experience scrimming on it than Heroes Hearth does against higher level teams.
Right.
Which means they're more aware of the drafting considerations. It was game 3 for Good Guys versus Leftovers, and it was, not surprisingly, it was Leftovers map pick actually. So it's an interesting dynamic where when we have one region where the pro team picked it and the other region where the pro team did not pick it.
Right.
And Infernal Shrines has always been played extensively in Korea more than any other region, and then in the EU. And it's just a very team fight centric map. And generally speaking, and this is backwards in my opinion, but the first thing pro teams get good at is team fighting.
Right. I mean,
So,
it's the easiest
if you
thing to kind of practice, though, right? It kind of makes sense.
I guess.
Like you can practice it by yourself, kind of.
Yeah, it probably doesn't require as much grind as the macro play does.
It's fair. I think teams should focus on macro first.
Absolutely.
And team fighting should be something that happens around macro. But no team agrees with me so far. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a lot more fun, right? Like, you got to admit, like, going and brawling is more fun than
yeah,
practicing.
but are pro teams trying to have fun, or are pro teams trying to win?
We're talking about NA here, so I don't know. It depends on the team.
I think that Infernal Shrines is another great map to be a viewer of, right? The games on this map.
Yeah.
I think that there's just a lot of interesting play despite it having been in rotation for such a long time.
Yeah, it never feels stale to me. I'm never like, I'm kind of sick of seeing this map.
Well, some of the other objectives feel far more impactful. So I think that these, while important, provide for a little less one-sided play, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What are the trends we're seeing draft-wise in this map now compared to how people used to draft this map? Obviously, it's definitely different. The comps are playing, or do you feel they're kind of emphasizing the same things with new heroes?
That was a kitten.
Okay.
He's just not. That's actually a really good question, and I don't think anyone's ever asked that exact question to me before. but the overall meta of the map has been fairly consistent with a couple of pocket comps by a few teams. The most popular composition on the map is hyper carry, right? You have double warrior, one support, an offlaner generally, and then your hyper carry, or double support, double tank hyper carry. So those are the two most popular comps on the map historically, long term.
Okay.
The big one there is Tassadar. Tassadar, I think, is almost always picked or banned on this map. In the vast majority of games, you provide vision. The Psystorm build in particular gives you a lot of steal potential for last hitting the shrine minions. Once that's stacked up, the area and the damage it does is significant enough that you have to constantly be worried about it. Second best hero at stealing is probably Greymane with the cocktail build.
Okay.
Kael'thas is up there, but Kael'thas has other issues with mobility, and in a dive meta, it can be inconsistent.
Gul'dan.
Gul'dan, same thing. Really good at last hitting, really good at stealing.
Has some potential.
Well, Vala has the multi-shot build for that, and then his mobility. And this is, even though we almost exclusively see Q build on Vala these days, pros have just decided that Q build is better. This is the one map where Q build does not shine because the Q will jump to the shrine minions.
Right.
Anytime you're talking about fighting in lane or around clump targets, it's not as good. So this is the map where we do still occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally see W build picked up for Vala by some players.
Okay, gotcha. Well, what they did in this game in the NA Crucible was Heroes Hearth with the first ban, first pick, and they go ahead and ban out an Ariel first ban. I never hate that ban, even with the nerf to her level 7. I like how many avenues it closes down. I always have. So there might be better heroes out there to ban first, but it's always decent to ban Ariel, I feel.
We had just talked about the hyper carry comp too, right? I mean, it seems like that just shuts down one piece of that.
Definitely. And then going over to the even in death, they actually first banned a Morales. So I'm curious about that ban. What do you think? What do you think that's about?
So a lot. This is the first game. We got to remember this is game 1, and a lot is going into this draft because even in death was intentionally not showing strats from the day they were locked into Crucible, which I believe was 3 weeks ago for regular HCC play. Which means the last 3 or 4 weeks, they'd shown absolutely nothing of what they really thought was the meta, or what they were really practicing, because they wanted to hide as many things as they can. Heroes Hearth was forced to show quite a bit, going through all the Open Cups and then the final playoffs. They showed even more than they wanted to because they did drop a set to imported sport and have to come up through the losers bracket.
Right.
So going into this, it should have been Heroes Hearth has no scouting on what Even in Death thinks is strong in the meta. Even in Death has everything that they think is everything that Heroes Hearth thinks is strong. The weird thing about the Ariel ban to me is that Ariel is almost considered a double support only hero right now because she's so good at sustain, but she doesn't have cleanse. Her only burst save mechanic is Aegis, which is you can play around Aegis. In fact, Aegis is essentially a setup mechanic, right? You can guarantee the follow-up damage hits. So when I see the Ariel ban, I'm like, does Even in Death play double support? Do they actually think double support is strong? Because historically they don't play double support, and when they do play it, they lose with it.
So maybe a little lack of scouting on Heroes Hearth's side in your view.
Well, that's my question. It's an interesting question to ask.
Yeah.
And then the Morales ban. There's a lot of Morales being played by Heroes Hearth. Dylan, who's the coach and drafter for Heroes Hearth, he actually does all their drafts. Thinks Morales is really, really strong and competitive.
Okay.
But so, I guess why not ban the Tassadar here instead of the Morales? Because the Morales still seems fragile to me, given kind of how the placement ends up of heroes during team fights here.
It's a good question. I feel like Tassadar is scarier on Infernal Shine specifically than Medic ever could be. And I also think that if I think I'm the better team, I think I'm going to be able to maneuver around better and play with vision more. And if Tassadar just negates that, like Oracle just negates outplaying on it because of superior scouting and superior map movement. because vision is such a critical thing to have. So I think Tassadar was a far better ban than Morales. Morales is basically targeting Heroes Hearth as opposed to thinking about what's good on the map.
Right.
And there's a degree where I like that, where if like this guy plays Medivh so well that we can't beat him if he's on Medivh. That's a reasonable target ban. Saying this hero is, they think this hero is strong, so we're going to ban it, is not the same thing as saying that they play this hero well enough that we have to ban it or we can't win.
Right.
Whereas Tassadar is just generically strong.
Right. Like Medivh can change a game. Like Medivh is a playmaker. Medivh can really change, like take the whole game and turn it around or hold it. Whereas Morales, it's like she heals a lot. You know exactly what her capabilities are, no matter who's playing her, kind of thing.
And she's got more weaknesses.
Yeah. So I feel like the Morales is a shallow view of the game.
Right. Skill ceiling is really low compared to Medivh on her. So you're like, yeah.
Well, especially because I get that they're not trying to show their strategies, but it's not like a Tassadar ban really gives anything away.
No, not when it's the 7. Like it's literally the most popular hero on the map.
Right.
In the history of pro play. You're
exactly.
not giving anything away.
And you're not doing first bite at the apple. You know, I mean.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, Heroes Hearth doesn't care because they picked up Rhaegar and Lucio.
I know. I don't understand that either.
Yeah. I like Lucio.
They don't pick up the Lucio.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad. Rhaegar over here.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert. So I guess we could talk about the Rhaegar over the Tassadar and why you think they went that way.
Rhaegar is the only generalist healer left. He's one of only, I think, three supports that I've cleansed. No, 4, because Lily. So it's Lily, Brightwing, Rhaegar, and Uther has Hand of Freedom. Mm-hmm. So those are all really good things. In addition to that, Rhaegar straight up with someone else there and with Lightning Bond has basically the best shrine clear of any hero. Not like of supports, but of any hero.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously a very strong thing to just pick up. He can also solo camps if he needs to. And a lot of the Diablo map camps are really impactful, especially the Bruiser camp, because it pushes forever until it gets to core. The Khazar camps were buffed recently, and they're already decently strong. Like they were pretty easy to deal with, but buffing them obviously makes them, even more valuable as consideration. So Rhaegar is arguably the only support that you would first pick and be like, we're not necessarily going double support, so you don't give away very much in your draft. Mm-hmm. And he's also just really strong on some maps.
Okay. I mean, that's fair enough. Do you think personally it's a better first pick than Tassadar here?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you don't have to go into a hyper carry comp if you pick the Rhaegar. You have to go into a hyper carry comp if you pick the Tassadar. So you're giving away the entire structure of your draft.
That's a good point, actually. I mean, the Tassadar does give away what you're doing. There's not a lot that can be done about it, honestly, but like there's some things. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's not like it was even in death who was going to be tilting their hand here, right? I mean, Heroes Hearth kind of an open book.
Yeah. Well, neither team cares about Tassadar, so we're going over, and even in death picks up the first pick, Gul'dan, who we talked about the kind of the wave clear and the ability to steal the skull guys, and ETC. Again, ETC is back. Governor Breeze said it was law. He's back. You can't stop playing him, so now he's back. So, yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about why you picked up Gul'dan out of all of the other hyper carry or wave clear heroes here?
The wave clear,
yeah. I wouldn't. I think is what.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like there's better options. So.
I think there's better heroes to pick up early on in the situation, and even in death, basically went into the series saying Heroes Hearth is only good at wombo combos. They're only good at wombo combo comps. So if we just don't let them wombo us, we win. Yeah. So I think they're not picking up Gul'dan here. I think they're literally picking up Horrify.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I was watching these Crucible games, and mostly the Gul'dan very, very popular in these games. He got picked a lot, and it was for Horrify. Like it was just people. Some of these players were really good at nailing really clutch Horrifies right when they needed them, and it won them a lot of games. So yeah, that's what I was gonna agree with that. Like even in death wants the Horrify, and they want it now. So Yeah, and he does good shrine clear. He's got good soak, wave clear. He's a solid hero. There's just better choices if you're just focusing on the shrine clear.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's early, right? It's really early to pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
You put yourself in a situation. So you picked up ETC, you revealed your tank. You're gonna have an offlaner, and your offlaner may be a ranged or may not, because sometimes we do see double ranged, double support as opposed to two frontliners. The generic standard draft tank, melee of some kind, healer, range damage, and then a flex that sort of fills out your comp or complements things. But when you go double support, you have enough sustain and enough tools generally for zoning and peeling that you don't need the second frontliner, so you can go double range if you want to.
Right.
But when you pick up a range like Gul'dan who needs peel, and then you pick up the peel, like one of the next two picks are kind of obvious. Like you've given away a large part of the structure of your draft, whereas you pick up something like a Greymane. Greymane can solo lane if you need him to. Like he can be an offlaner. It's not always ideal, but he wins a lot of lane. There's a lot of lane matchups that he wins. If you're talking about shrine clear, Cocktail is second best at sealing the shrine minions' last hits. So that's amazing. Like, why not pick up Greymane there instead of the Gul'dan?
I think it's the Horrify. Like
it literally, they're literally drafting Horrify, and I'm like, do you really prioritize Horrify
over Greymane
that highly?
Yeah. Especially because it's a game one Crucible draft, right? I mean, I don't know. I do really like the ETC pickup though. I think he's great. I
don't think there's a bad time to pick ETC.
Right.
He especially has some value here. With basically, Heroes Hearth has to think about Mosh drafting against Mosh now, because I don't know. Like maybe we'll get.
I'm sorry, people watching the series. People want to see some 5-man Moshes. I don't think it was not this game, but you got to watch this whole series because Heroes Hearth was clumping so hard.
Yeah, and this map kind of forces that too, so he gets some value there. Yeah,
we could do a draft on that. We could do an analysis of the Cursed Hollow draft, which is game 5, which is how not to draft against ETC.
Okay, I'm down if you are. So I believe it. But so ETC looks really good here to me too. I think he's great here. So Heroes Earth then does pick up the Lucio and Avala.
Dude.
And so Lucio considered a good hero for this map. Obviously, nice quick lane rotations on a very vertical map. Nice mobility when you're trying to get out of trouble in the shrine, and the sound barrier. So I think as far as double supports go, Rhaegar Lucio is a pretty good double support combo.
It gives you two things. It gives you Rhaegar has the ancestral, so it gives you a burst save mechanic. Frequently, it's become a little bit more of a trend lately, and I'm sure with Anna we'll see it even more. People are drafting anti-heal abilities to negate ancestral. Right. And shields negate that. So sound barrier negates the counter to ancestral.
Right. Yeah. That makes
sense.
So
I like that a lot. That's a really cool little synergy going on. And then movement speed. Also, Lucio can interrupt Mosh.
That's true. Yeah, he does have the boot. So that's one. And there's Rain of Vengeance available too. That is one thing I want to point out though. I've been seeing it in my drafts. People, if you're drafting double support, people don't consider that aspect of things where it's like, what kind of double healers are these? Because if it's Lucio and Malfurion, well, that's just two slow healers, Whereas when you have something like a Rhaegar, like you got Lucio for a nice constant heal, and then you got a big burst heal with Rhaegar. You want that divine shield, that like big clutch save kind of double heal. If you're gonna be drafting that, consider that. Consider you need that big ult heal too. Like not just two healers. Any two healers wins. Like it doesn't work that way. So.
Right. Yeah. You need a natural healer if you draft a Tassadar.
I had Lucio Mouth on my team today, by the way.
I figured that came from personal experience.
And I was like, I can't get healed. Yeah.
So Lucio Uther. Lucio Uther's also really good.
Yeah, burst heal there for sure, and a divine shield. So yeah.
I liked Go ahead.
No, I was just going to reiterate myself that
okay.
Something just in your games, please consider that.
Some people just want to hear themselves talk, but
yeah, I guess so.
No, and so far in this draft, I mean, I like Heroes Hearth's draft, quite a bit. I think that they have opportunity here to solidify their comp into something that can work even with the tools that even in Death's picked up. So if you're even in Death here, what do you do to kind of flesh out your draft? I mean, we already talked about how the structures kind of already know, need an offlaner, need a healer. Which ones are you thinking what would work best here?
So they end up
going into a ban phase too.
They go into a ban phase. From what's been shown, even in Death needs to ban either an offlaner or a tank. Those are the only roles that aren't filled, right? So it's obvious you ban one of those. Given the fact that they are planning to go double support, spoilers, they're planning to go double support, even though they don't really have a whole lot of experience or success with it.
Right.
I ban a hero that will isolate potentially, or make my double support struggle in terms of saving a single target. So heroes that have really hard engage, Muradin potentially, Diablo would be up there, except Diablo gets really hard countered by ETC. You don't, generally speaking, you do not want to play Diablo in ETC. And one of the reasons Diablo has been coming back into the meta was because ETC was not in the meta, and then he's immediately dropped out again when ETC came back into the meta.
Plus, that wouldn't let Heroes Hearth have a very tanky front line either.
Yeah. Potentially there's, are we worried about globals? Are they going to do any sort of thing like that? What is Heroes Hearth been playing? A fair amount of. They play a fair amount of Anub'arak. They play a fair amount of Dahaka. They play a fair amount of.
Well, just what are you most worried about? Because there's lots of bans for those particular roles. I mean, how do you narrow that down and really decide?
For me, I've already picked my tank. And so I want to limit their tank pool as much as possible. And if I'm going off what I've scouted of them based on what they historically play and what's good on this map and what works for what works compositionally, Anub'arak, Johanna, and maybe Diablo are my top 3 bans. I don't want to ban a bruiser because I haven't picked up my bruiser yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, going into those bans, we do have a Malthael ban on the side of Even in Death, which is the first of the 2 bans here, and then a Uther ban on Heroes Hearth.
What were they really going after here with this Malthael ban? I mean, wave clear on the shrine's not bad, but what is it that they're trying to take out?
I think they were banning the Wombo combo. They were like, okay, well, Malthael works with their comp because Malthael goes in and gets sound buried and ancestral and doesn't die. But slow damage into double support, which is what Malthael's damage is, it's very slow, doesn't work. So they banned something that they hard countered with, that they were planning at least to hard counter with the later picks in their draft, assuming they went in with a detailed plan, which makes that ban awful.
Okay, well, let's take a look then, because I'm curious. So they do actually pick up the Sonya and Brightwing. So taking a look at that through the lens of the Sonya Brightwing.
Well, Heroes Hearth bans Uther first.
Yeah, I put that, and if you want to talk about that, we can. But
I do.
Okay, that's fine. Let's talk about it.
No,
get back to it.
I just there's lots of healers to still be picked up, and maybe even if they want to go double support too, right? Why wouldn't you target the offlaner here?
I think they were banning Holy Cow.
Okay. Yeah, they still want to deal with it.
That's literally what it came down to. They were banning Divine Shield plus Mosh Pit.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Interesting.
So now looking at Sonya Brightwing, why do you dislike the Malthael ban so much?
Well, actually, Malthael has a winning lane matchup into Sonya, but by banning the Malthael there, you give away that you're going Sonya. Right? And you were saying they could have banned a bruiser. Well, they'll ban Malthael. That gives away that they want to go Sonya. What if we ban Sonya and then they don't get what they wanted? Like, that's really bad for us. Sonya's really good into hyper carries because hyper carries tend to be pretty fragile, and a Wrathed Poison Spear almost kills Vala. Like, just straight up almost kills Vala. And that's a lot of damage. Even double support can struggle into it. So really good shrine clear. One of the best solo shriners because you just keep spinning. And you don't lose any health.
Seems like a great pickup here.
So
all the way around.
Brightwing gives you a global, It gives you an offlaner, not to be confused with a solo laner. Generally speaking, offlaner is someone in the mid to late game who's just not with the team pushing out a lane, and then it can usually as a global, so they can come in to the team composition. Proactively negates damage with her armor from pixie dust, and then has the shield. So all sorts of really good proactive plays possible with the Brightwing, and has a lot of playmaking potential with Emerald Wind to steal the shrine itself. Even before people started picking Emerald Wind, I suggested that people always go Emerald Wind with Brightwing on Infernal Shrines, because Emerald Wind is the size of the shrine.
Right.
And it does enough damage to guarantee you an entire spawn of shrine minions.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know it. I didn't know it actually wiped the minions. Yeah. So you would let Heroes Hearth potentially have the Malthael then, even though it's a winning matchup against the Sonya?
But the solo lane on Infernal Shrines lasts like a minute and a half.
It's not that long, yeah.
Like, you can tie a lane for a minute and a half, and then it's pretty much over for the rest of the game, because Brightwing's your actual offlaner, and Sonya's going to be with the team.
What would you have liked to see even in Death Band instead of the Malthael?
A Nubrak.
Or
Diablo.
Oh, okay.
Or Muradin.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Going over again. So the Nubrak, yeah. But then if they have the Malthael... Okay, yeah, I get it. So Heroes Hearth rounds out their draft with a Greymane and a Diablo. So there is that Diablo we were talking about. Diablo, pretty solid hero on this map. Again, you were saying you don't want to pick him into ETC, which is true. ETC has a pretty easy time zoning him out and getting him stuck. But Diablo has those 4 corners on the shrine that he can slam into, which is all kind of tempting, you know. So
this is Diablo's best map by far. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm talking about it again. I don't like when people talk about hard counters. I like it when people talk about having this hero on the enemy team increases the execution level from me. So the easiest example that I think everyone understands is Li Ming. Li Ming into a Nubrak sucks for Li Ming. She has to make sure that there's no beetles in the way of her orbs, no beetles in the way of her skill shot. She needs to make sure Nubrak himself is not in the way, because if she hits a Nubrak and it bounces off a spell shield, she's traded her cooldowns to do 0 damage. Zilch. But there's 4 other people in the enemy team, and if Li Ming tries to focus on them and is always forcing the Nubrak to counter her and position around where she's throwing her spells, that makes life hard for the Nubrak. Also, Disintegrate is the best counter in the game to Cocoon, and Cocoon is a big reason that they're part of the reason you draft Nubrak. So Li Ming is not hard countered by Nubrak, but the execution level from Li Ming goes up dramatically. She can't just chuck spells and win. She has to chuck spells at specific targets at specific times from specific positions. She has to shave Disintegrate specifically for Cocoon. Like, there's all these dynamics that she has to then play around.
Right. And that
ETC and
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
ETC and Diablo doesn't necessarily auto lose to ETC, but ETC can just like play normally. He's like, oh, you went in, I'm going to W you away. You've comboed me, I slide out, I'm totally safe. Yeah. Diablo needs to do significantly better than the ETC to win into the ETC matchup.
Right. Yeah. Another example that's Genji Uther, right? Like, it's not like you can't ever pick Genji if they have an Uther, but Genji has to then really play out of his mind, and Uther has to press 2 buttons. So it's like you're making a lot of burden execution on yourself, but you can do it, you know.
Yeah, so. Genji can never go in next to the Uther if Uther's stun is available, and ideally he just never goes anywhere near the Uther, and he's always just trying to work on the outleaders, right? Work on the people who are not standing next to the Uther. And it's harder. You've dramatically limited where Genji can go.
Yeah, and you have to kind of like, you have to be aware of the Uther's cooldowns. It's a lot more to do, you know. So, yeah, it's a good example. So you're okay with the Diablo pick here then? No. Okay. And is that just because of the ETC, or? It's
just because of the ETC. If I see Diablo on their team, unless I'm like, I am twice as good as you, I'm not doing it. I'm just not gonna happen. I don't care if it's his best map. I'm not doing it.
I do like the Greymane pickup though.
I was asked what we thought about that, other than, you know, the trout tail we talked about. It seems like there's a lot of kind of beefy frontline control, and even in death, for a Greymane this late in the draft.
That's true, but you have Cursed Bullet potentially to finish off, to start, you know, make initiation on the Sonya that you see. You also could go for the throat instead, and one of the things Fnatic has demonstrated. Fnatic, by the way, except for Tassadar, does not play double support well. When they play it, they lose. They have like a 20% win rate with double support if you don't count Tassadar.
Okay.
Best team in the world can't play double support, even though double support's the meta. It's pretty bad. But their solution is, well, what if we just were so coordinated and drafted so much damage that we just killed your carry at the start of every fight, and then there was no one to heal because you were all dead. Right. What if we did that?
I mean, if you can do it, you should do that, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah. So drafting enough
That's
first.
true of every team, though, right?
Drafting enough first and having faith in your ability to execute. And Heroes Hearth is known for being able to push all their buttons on the same target at the same time. It's something they're very good at. And Greymane would go for the throat helps with that because he can pretty much from anywhere in a fight be on the focus target.
Right.
He has that kind of mobility.
Now, I do see looking at
There's
this
polymorph,
draft.
though, too.
That's true. There's polymorph, but I don't hate the Greymane pick at all. I mean, Crowan's pretty good at the hero. I think he can keep himself safe, honestly, and he can get some kills.
I mean, Greymane was Crowan's third trick.
Right, yeah. The two-trick pony became a third trick, yeah. One thing I do see, though, looking at Heroes Hearth's draft, is there anything even in death, could have snap drafted here with a nice blind? Because I think that would hurt Heroes Hearth quite a bit.
It could have picked Lily.
There's a Lily, right? Like, and I'm kind of like, would Lily be good here? That's what I was gonna ask you.
Basically, the way Lily works is if there's two to three, preferably three high-value blind targets, Lily is really good.
Right, and I see
as
that.
a second, and she has to be a secondary support.
Yeah.
And she has to generally not be an early game map.
Right.
Her power spikes are at 13 for blind build and 16 for serpent build, so you need to be able to get a 13 or 16 fairly consistently. But it would not have been bad. I would have preferred, like, Rhaegar has a really good auto attack, especially with lunge. Vala, Greymane, auto attackers. It would not have been bad.
Yeah, I that's what I was thinking. It could work, and obviously, if you could have gotten Arl, you would want to get it there because she has a blind and she's really good. But she was banned. Just curious. And you have
fun to watch.
And you have a Gul'dan on your team, so the Ariel would have been nice. But yeah, just curious about the Lily there.
The Ariel probably wouldn't have made it this far, though.
No, probably not.
I mean,
no way.
But the other thing I was like, just thinking of this real quick, like if they had picked an actual healer instead of Brightwing and left that slot open, they could have Cassia. If they had like an Uther, or, some. I mean, I know it's banned, but just like a healer, Just trying to think of other things even in death could have done against this comp, because I think this comp has weaknesses. Heroes Hearths,
I mean, they lost. So
yeah.
Despite the fact they did win the series, they lost this game.
Right, they lost this game. Yeah. Okay. Just thinking. So they did end up picking up the Stukov instead, which of course on the shrines you're just like, look at this giant circle, and you're like, So I'm assuming that's what that's about.
It really is just zoning potential.
Yeah.
Also, if you can't push your buttons, you can't dive on people.
Yeah.
So if you have to come through a choke to dive on someone, and then you can't because you're silenced.
Yeah. And I assume Battery did go the expanding circle in the range this game, but
that's generally the secondary support build.
Right.
I don't think it's the right build for a solo support Stukov, but I think it's in general the right support for a right build for a secondary support Stukov because you're doing a lot of zoning, and that's really valuable. I actually really like ADRD's new build for secondary support Stukov with the Spine Launcher at 1 and then the Root Talent at 13. Yeah. That's a really interesting build.
I love Spine Launcher when they buffed it. They're re-nerfing it a little, but
yes, they overbuffed it.
I thought it was so good. I was like, I took it one game and I was like, holy crap! Like this is a slowing auto attack that hits hard. Like it's really good. Yeah. So sad to see that go, but it probably needed to. Heroes Hearth did drop this game, and do you think it was basically due to that counter dive kind of stuff they have with the ETC and the Stukov?
I think that they made some. I think there was some roughness in the draft. I don't think that Dylan was necessarily aware of how hard countered Diablo gets in the pro level by ETC.
Right.
But also Heroes Hearth just played horribly this game.
Did they?
They look like they were not even them. I don't know how to put it. It's like they were having identity crisis. I think they were nervous Game one, they needed to shake off some nerves. They came back significantly in game two, and I think game three actually was their best game of the series, and they got a little bit confident and dropped one more, but then they managed to close it out in game 5 and 6.
Yeah. So. Okay, so it was just a little rust then. You think from the first game they were just kind of.
It was just a little bit. I think what are they drafting? What do they think is strong? We're not certain what they think is strong, so we're not certain what to pick ourselves. And then that's on the drafting side, which is on the coach. And then on the player side, they were just like, there's so much pressure, right? If we don't win this series, we don't get into HGC.
Right.
We're not pro players. We want to be pro players again.
Gotta get them checks, man. Yeah.
In Ishbu's and BBJ's case, they want to be pro players for the first time.
Right. Absolutely. That would be awesome.
So looking at these drafts, it seems to me that even Death has great shrine control, and Heroes Hearth would have had a hard time breaking into that. Where
they don't have the tools to come in on the shrine. They just don't have it. Not
right,
against not into the Stukov ETC.
So where in the draft or where could they have recovered? Where did it go bad, or what was the savior instead of the Diablo? Maybe.
I mean, they need something that can engage and control vision, so it needs also have an escape to potentially have
a new backer
taking those flanks. I mean, they could have picked up a Tassadar instead of the Lucio, and that would have given them vision. They could have picked up an Anubrak. That would have been really good. Anubrak's always questionable level support, because a lot of times with the Cocoon, the idea is you cocoon the support and then go in and kill someone. The support can't make the save. The 2 supports, it's not an option. Right. But you can still, cocoon the ETC and dive the Gul'dan or something, like remove the peel, but then the Emerald Wind comes in. But there's still there's always going to be someone slightly out of position. Where if you're good at coordinating assaults, which Heroes Hearth is, it's a specialty of theirs, you can make something happen. And I think they were trying to do that with the Diablo, but Diablo is like a one and done thing. As soon as Diablo shows, everyone backs off because they know how threatening he is. Right. Whereas Anubrak, there's a little bit more dimension to his engage options.
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's tough for you. You just can't. Every hero on this team has to just straight up manually walk onto the shrine, except for Diablo. Like nobody else has like a point and click. Go at that guy.
Well, Greymane does. If they go.
That's true, but from the shadows, it's the range is like feasible on Diablo. Whereas Greymane, it's kind of hard to get in there. Yeah, at least from just the shrine raw like that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So. Okay, so that was the first game. We'll go back over here, and we're going to take a look at Team Good Guys versus the Leftovers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the differences you saw in these drafts or these games from region to region while I update the team names, please?
Overall level of play in EU is just higher. EU, last time Blizzard released stats, basically had twice as many players as in North America.
Oh, really?
And having that increased size of community gives you a better competitive depth. It's straight up more impressive to be a high level player in EU than it is to be a high level player in NA, because in EU there's
that way for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot more competition in EU, and that means when there's more people in a region, there's more people thinking about the game, there's more people playing each other, there's more people testing things, there's more people talking to other people about the game, and you get this bigger community, which results in more people talking, and people who can't perform consistently get filtered out. So in community of like a few hundred pro players or a few hundred amateur plus pro players who are all that kind of level, that or maybe a couple hundred, there's going to be some people who are inconsistent, but sometimes they're good enough and they are considered a good player, and they maybe pop up high enough to get like all the way into HGC at some point, and then their team performs badly. That doesn't happen in EU. Everyone in EU performs really consistently, right, because their population is big enough to eliminate the variance.
Survival of the fittest, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually went back and looked, because I was curious if this was true. This was something that's true in early days of League of Legends as well. In early days of other and Dota and other games, people were bad, and they were still considered pro players even though they were bad because their region wasn't very competitive. And people were like, this person's bad, but he's still a pro player. And as the game grew, that stopped being true. So the increased population eventually led to stabilization of the level of competitiveness across regions to some degree. Yeah. We're starting to see that same thing in HOTS, and he used the first region that really has a population where that's starting to be the case.
Yeah. So, and I wish that wasn't the case, because like obviously everybody here loves this game, and to me it's baffling. It's like, what are you playing? Like, what are you playing instead? What are you doing? You playing PUBG? Stop that. This game is awesome. Like, I don't know. I think it's cool that it's so popular in Europe. I love that, but I wish it would catch on here a little more, you know?
Well, I also do like the fact that we have another region out besides Korea
Yeah.
who loves this game and like plays it at a level that should let them be world champions, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think that's awesome too. Absolutely. I just, I'm not gonna get political, but I've been disappointed in my country a lot lately. It would be nice if NA would make me proud and do something in HOTS, But
Well, on the bright
really...
side, I heard the Chinese teams are having visa problems, so Tempo Storm may get out of groups at BlizzCon.
Oh, there we go. That's one way in through the back door, baby. Yeah.
Immigration, right?
Yeah. You're still on our land. We're getting in that tournament.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for NA to become more successful, it's going to require more grassroots, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I hope that becomes a thing.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about Heroes Hearth's team, right? Like they're kind of Heroes Hearth's kind of like us, They're like a fan site. They like made a little project and it kind of got popular, and now they have a team.
We need like 250 more of those.
Right. I agree, but yeah,
you have to have a competitive environment in order to let the cream kind of rise to the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was talking through. So
there's a saying that I really like, which is that you're only as good as the best person you can beat.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're only ever practicing against people who are as good as you, you're never actually getting better.
Not improving.
And even if the top NA teams practice against each other, if the top NA teams aren't as good as the mid-tier EU teams, they're actually not getting to that level.
Right.
I think you just described Danny's Hero League experience.
Rude. Yeah, probably though. I'd love to get better. I try. I do have some ideas for how to make the game more appealing for NA audiences, but that'll be an article I'm working on. It's kind of long, so. But you guys can check it out when it's written. It's basically, long story short, Blizzard made a game that is like designed around playing on a team with your friends, and then kind of ignored it, and everyone plays Hero League, and it's like Hero League sucks. Why are you like Yeah.
There's no social tools. There needs to be social tools in the game.
Basically, I have a team like kind of like the LFR from World of Warcraft, like a team league team builder tool in game that I want, stuff like that. Sorry, Ryan, what were you going to say?
I think we're going to actually see some of that at BlizzCon. I think if I had to predict,
I do too.
That would be my top in my short list of things we're going to see. I think that they need something that lets you find more people to play with and to build that type of community, because it's that sort of thing that is going to be important. And maybe it's something I'd like to see down the road, some sort of like in-game tournament builder, right, where you go in.
Yeah, StarCraft has it. It's on the StarCraft
That's what I'm
engine.
thinking, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
if there were an in-game tournament builder, that would be so good, because you could have like short, brief tournaments.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm thinking, right?
You have like in-house leagues constantly. There's 4 or 5 fairly active Discord servers for North America and in Europe that would just constantly be playing each other instead of playing Hero League. People would there's people who would literally stop playing Hero League if that was available 24/7, and it would be with social tools like that.
Right, and I think that's how you build that sort of community, though, too. I mean, if we use StarCraft as an example, right, the community had to do that for years and years and years and years. But putting it right in the client brings a whole another audience, right?
Absolutely.
It brings a different group of people who are exposed to that and hopefully, get value out of it. But I think the whole ecosystem benefits. So I'm sure it's something they're working on. I'm sure their laundry list is 3 miles long at this point. But I hope to see some groundwork for that.
Emphasis on Team League and in-game tournaments. Let's go. All right. Yeah, that was
good.
That would make the game, I think, grow in popularity. So didn't mean to go off on that tangent, but I'm glad we did talk about it a little bit, because we care about this game and we want it to succeed.
Yeah.
So, Team Good Guys versus Leftovers.
On to Europe.
On to Europe. The first pick goes to Team Good Guys, and they do decide to ban out the old Tassadar. Can't argue with that. Yeah.
It's almost like Europe. It's almost like Europe has a better handle on drafting.
No way.
Almost.
No way. On this map?
Well, you're gonna love this then, because Leftovers goes ahead and bans out the ETC,
which is the correct ban.
Those are both correct bans. You win, Europe. Once again.
Big prize.
you win the draft off. Yeah. So
they ban high impact heroes that are comp defining, which limits the forks. going back to the hero, there's heroes that can replace Ariel.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't heroes that can really replace Tassar. There aren't heroes that can replace ETC. They are. Their kit is designed in such a way that only they can do the things that they can do in most cases.
Yep.
So by eliminating them, you've eliminated entire like forks in the draft, and now you only have to think about like these options, and these options are just gone completely.
Yeah.
And not only are they just good heroes, they're also really good on this battleground.
Yeah.
Yes.
They also shine here in particular. Yeah.
Right.
You could ban these two bans pretty much anywhere, but they're especially good here. Yeah. So, going over back to Team Good Guys, they do the same first pick as Heroes Hearth. They pick up the Rhaegar. So we talked a little bit about why that's so good. Best shrine clear in the game, nice aggression, good burst support, all that. So I don't think we need to go on in that again.
How do you feel about the chain? Well, I just wanted to ask about
Go ahead.
How do you feel about the change to chain heal and spreading that heal out? Does that make them less valuable? Or in maps where there's more clumping like this, is it more valuable?
Okay, so in most levels of play, that's a net buff because Focus Fire is poor, and it makes Rhaegar easier to play. Because there used to be a real consideration for how do I position to make sure that the bounces go to the targets that I want them to go to maximize the value of my chain heal. Obviously, you want the first hit to go onto the lowest cell target because it had a higher initial hit, but you could actually control where you positioned in such a way that you would get the bounces. Also, the bounces and the initial cast are now the same range, so you can never miss bounces. Whereas before you could miss bounces if you didn't position well. So Rhaegar got easier to play at a pro level. And it's just his single target healing is slightly worse, and his overall sustained healing is better, which, because he has Ancestral, he can afford to take a slight hit on a single target healing and come out ahead. So he was made easier and better.
Okay.
Gotcha. And this was game 3, right?
This was game 3.
Okay,
Yes.
got it. So Leftovers, with their first 2 picks, pick up Uther and a Johanna. So those picks are interesting to me, especially since Uther's changes and the Johanna is such a high priority. But you do see that, and you kind of go, that's a solid couple of heroes there. Like they're very sturdy. That team's gonna be hard to kill already. But what do you think of these picks?
So the Johanna is pretty good on Infernal Shrines just because of Condemn being pretty high value. Uther can go into Cleanse if he needs to. He has Hand of Freedom. It's not Cleanse. But Johanna's a support, the one of the 2 tanks that doesn't need Cleanse, basically.
Right.
The other being Arthas, and that means you can go into Guardian of Kings and get a lot of value out of that. I'm not a fan of the Johanna pickup, and the reason I'm not a fan of the Johanna pickup is I think of Johanna primarily as a wave clear tank who doesn't have really good strong engage until 10,
right? Who's
pretty good into ETC.
And they banned ETC.
So
she is good in the ETC. She's, you just can't pick Mosh. You can, but that Mosh is going to get interrupted.
And the biggest synergy that John has in the game right now, in my opinion, is Kael'thas, because you force the spread of Chain Bomb and you force people into Flame Strikes.
Right.
And Koreans like her with Vala. I totally understand. The Condemn into Reign of Vengeance is really good. The Koreans have run that combo for a really long time. They're very practiced with it. But if you look at their comp, if they pick up Kael'thas, and they can't have Uther Soul support because you can't do that. Right. Someone picks up a Mathiel, they pick up an Uther, you lose the attrition more. You need to have another support to complement the Uther.
Yeah.
Your draft is suddenly very limited in the choices that you can make. So because Johanna requires synergy with other heroes in order to be successful, and you've set yourself up for a situation where you cannot pick those heroes, the Johanna pick becomes a dead end. It doesn't go anywhere. And it's your second pick. You spent a pick on it very early on in the draft to go down a blind alley.
Are there any kind of tank bruisers here that would warrant a pick this early in the draft now that ETC is out?
Tanks, probably not. Maybe a Nubrak if a Nubrak was still heavily prioritized in the meta, but he's not. I'm
not quite sure what they're trying to do with the Joe here versus waiting or pitching. There's better options. Period. I don't know.
It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense to pick up your tank here. ETC is the only tier S tank essentially in the current meta. So why pick up your tank here? It may have been a denial pick. They may have decided that Team Good Guys really liked Johanna and they were using it to deny, but I don't like picking to deny unless you're going to build a comp around the denial pick. Like, you need to aggressively have a good reason to be playing that hero. They have played Johanna, I think, in 8 games, but they lost 6 of them. Well, Team Good Guys do not perform well with Johanna.
Right, and Leftovers played Johanna on Tomb of the Spider Queen in game 1 and won with it. So, I don't know. Maybe just
I just don't understand the priority.
Yeah, you could that could have waited though. That could have
waited. But they played Johanna with Chaos.
Right, and on Tomb, you know.
And on Tomb, which is Johanna's best map because it's the most wave clear centric map, and Johanna's a wave clear tank.
Yeah, so it is odd. It is odd. It was not who I expected to see there either when I clicked it over. But yeah, we'll take a look. So Team Good Guys gets the other thing is, when you pick your tank that early and she's it's kind of a one, I don't want to say one dimensional, but it's
she's one dimensional.
Yeah, she's just a tank. Like, so when you pick your Johanna, that gives you 4 slots to be like, how do we beat Johanna? You know, it's pretty easy to do, honestly.
Or just play around her, right?
Or play around her.
She doesn't have that much potential until 10.
Right. So the early Johanna pickup, I think we all agree, is pretty weird. So there's a Sonya and a Greymane. So already you see 2 things that can give Johanna a rough time. Now that being said, she can build into, she can deal with Curse Bullet, honestly, like Laws of Hope, the big Iron Skin buff.
But Draymane's not locked in to Curse Bullet.
Right, he's not. But it's just an interesting thing. So what do you think of the Sonya pickup? Obviously, Infernal Shrines, Sonya very solid here, and the Greymane, all the same reasons we talked about. Do you like these 2 picks in these 2 slots?
I do, because they give you both of the coins of how to win shrines. If you're already winning the game, Sonya just souls the shrine. If you're not already winning the game, Greymane with Cocktail Build just steals shrine minion after shrine minion after shrine minion, and it's very difficult to deal with. They both have camp potential. They both can offlane. They both add kill pressure to your composition, which is going to be critical. Regardless of if Leftovers goes in double support or not, they're going to need something that can punch through that.
Yeah.
The potential of burst to save from Uther, right? So it gives them everything they need to win the map objective and keep lanes even. They don't have to win, because you don't have to necessarily win the lanes, right? You can win lanes if you want to. You can draft a comp specifically around winning your lanes, but on Infernal Shrines, it's the 2nd strongest map objective, essentially. Winning it is really, really valuable. They now have all the tools to do it, and they still have 2 slots left in their draft.
Yep, that sounds about right. So far you're thinking Team Good Guys is looking a lot better in this draft.
Oh, yes.
Due to the Johanna early pickup in the Uther. Okay. So going into the ban phase, we do have a Gul'dan ban from Leftovers, which I think is curious, personally, given what Good Guys has already drafted. But
I thought so too.
We need even more shrine control.
Yeah, it's kind of like they already have that covered. Yeah.
Is it a denial? It doesn't even feel like Horrify would be that beneficial with what they've already picked up either. I don't understand.
I mean, one of the things you can do with double support, which is Leftovers probably going to go, is, horrify the entire team, so everyone's running in a different direction. Kill the person that runs towards your team, right? They can't be saved because everyone's horrified. But that's one of those things where you're like, as soon as they clump, they lose. Well, what if we just never clumped? What if we just weren't bad? Obviously, it's very hard in Infernal Shrines because clumping is really easy to do in all the choke points on Infernal Shrines. And you'll see teams do like silly. It looks silly. Like if you see Dignitas or Fnatic or MB Black play on Infernal Shrines, they'll be like arced out around, and they'll be like not going in. They'll just be like arced out around the edge of a shrine and be like, we're not going to go anywhere near that choke point. And people look at. I've heard like you retweet that, they're like, why aren't they going in? Why aren't they just standing there? Well, they're not clumping. Good teams don't clump, but once you get into like out of the top 3 or 4 pro teams and get down to like the 5 or 6 pro teams, people start clumping.
Yeah,
these are the bottom 8. So
and you say let's not be bad. Sometimes it's hard to not be bad at this game. Like,
it's very difficult.
Oh yeah,
it's like I'm bad and I don't know how to stop. Like I keep pressing my buttons and dying. Yeah. So
and it's a team coordination thing. You specifically have to practice positioning in such a way that you don't clump, and you have to practice it not just like one time. You have to practice it on every common team fight area on every map. So the way you don't clump on the top shrine on Infernal Shrines is completely different from the way you don't clump on the bottom shrine in Infernal Shrines.
Right.
And there's like 5 or 6 areas on Infernal Shrines where team fights will frequently break out that you have to practice it on. And then you have to do it for the other 9 maps in each of the areas. Like all the tribute spawns on Cursed Hollow, each of those is a different way you don't clump, depending on where you're approaching it from and what side of the map you're coming from. So it's...
And you know, that's one of the things we love about this game so much is the battlegrounds, right? But like, think about that versus a MOBA with one map, like the other MOBAs. It's like you don't have to practice that stuff. There's so many maps, you know, so that lets them raise their skill higher and higher and higher. They're so good at the game because they play the one map, you know. So there's a lot to ask of a player to be good at this game because of those maps. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess that makes me feel a little better. Yeah, because I was like pretty good at Dota 2, man. Like I was, my MMR was up there, and now I'm like, I can't win. Yeah, so.
Well, and it makes it really hard for Heroes of the Storm because if you're playing with people who understand that and they're not explained together, maybe they don't quite sync at first. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of cases, you'll end up playing with people who are one tricks and they only understand how to position well on a certain role or on like 2 different heroes, maybe even just one hero. 25% of all players that make GM every season are one tricks.
Yeah.
They get to GM because they only play one hero and they only have to understand that one hero. They're not generally good at drafting. They're not generally good at the game. They are specifically good at one hero and they ride it up to Grandmaster.
Yeah. So they're the specialists, not that tab on your hero select screen.
Yeah.
I've been playing nothing but tank lately just because I wanted to focus on it, so I'm kind of feeling that way too. But yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I play try to play melee assassin the other day.
After I played enough tanks to write the Art of the Tank guide, I played every hero like a tank, and I fed so hard on backliners. So I'm just like, I need to control vision. I need to know where people are, and I kept dying.
Yeah, that's funny.
Because tanks can't do that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Or non-tanks can't do that.
Everyone but a tank can do that. You can't do that, yeah. All right, so going into so Team Good Guys does ban Chromie here. I actually like that ban, I think. Do you like that ban? I think I like that ban.
I like Chromie bans.
Yeah.
I think Chromie is underrated by pretty much most of the pro scene. Even the pros that pick her, I think they don't prioritize her highly enough. The only time I've seen prioritize Chromie highly enough is Roll20 when they first pick her. I think that's about where she belongs.
Yeah, totally. I think she's just so safe these days, you know, with the way the meta is and the way the maps are.
Well, she would have a lot of synergy with Condemn, as well as just kind of the layout of this battleground, right? I think that's true.
Infernal Shrines, a lot of people think Towers of Doom is her best map, and people will draft because you can delay the altar forever. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, is that really useful? Is delaying the altar forever really that great?
If you kill them,
that's my question. I'm just like, does one altar win or lose the game? I mean, obviously the last altar does, but what about every altar leading up to that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Towers of Doom is in my mind a push-centric map, so Chromie helps with anti-siege,
right.
But since most people don't play the map correctly, it doesn't really play to her strengths. But Infernal Shrines, choke points, slowing sands.
Yeah.
You just throw you can negate people coming in from one of 3 choke points on the middle and bottom shrine automatically, and on top you can negate them coming in on like half the entrances. They just can't come through. They can't come through. And strategically limiting tactically limiting the enemy team's options like that is broken.
Yeah,
broken.
That's a really good point about this map. That reminds me, I had a game on this map the other day with Chromie Stukov on the other team, and I've never felt more oppressed in my life.
You can't go in the shrine.
Because they would do the MasterCard logo with the 2 circles, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my god, this is the worst thing ever. Like, we got obliterated, yeah. So I guess I could see the Chromie on this map. That's a nice... I knew I liked this ban, yeah. So, okay. Is there anything you think maybe would be better as a ban there? Like maybe a different, like a Kael'thas or something? Because the Kael'thas Johanna thing, you know.
I think Kael'thas Johanna as a synergy is a little bit stronger than Kael'thas Chromie, but I'm way more afraid of slowing sands than I am of Phoenix, basically.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I am too, as everybody should be. Phoenix just kind of whittles you a little bit. Slowing sands gets you destroyed. So yeah, totally. All right, well, going back over to the leftovers, our new HGC Europe competitors. They pick up the Arthas, always nice AoE damage for the shrines, and a Stukov. So there he is, the Stukov.
So now they have the duo, right? They have the sustain healing in the form of Stukov. They have the burst healer in the form of Uther. They have zoning potential in the shrines. With Arthas Stukov, Greymane can't dive in to an Arthas. If Arthas is sitting on someone, you can't dive in as Greymane. So it's really, really strong appeal. Greymane also is blinded by the Trahana as necessary, so it's really hard for Greymane to do anything. The one hiccup here is that Sonya is really good into Arthas because Wrath, for damage taken, Wrath is generated by instances of damage, not amount of damage.
Right.
So Sonya just stands there. She will eventually slam spam Arthas to death, and ghouls actually provide additional targets for whirlwind healing.
That's true too, yeah. So you don't like the Arthas pick, is what you're saying?
The Arthas is good into the Greymane and bad into the Sonya.
Right. Okay.
So who are you on? Where's the execution? Who can you be in? The thing is, the Greymane doesn't have to go in to be countered by the Arthas, whereas the Sonya has to go in but isn't countered by the Arthas.
Right, that's a good point. And I actually am liking that Chromie ban a lot now because of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
There's Stukov, and they could have easily put Chromie in that last slot and been like, oh no, life is over, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought my sound cut out. Okay, we're good.
That would have been a lot. I mean, almost all the damage would have been in Chromie, though. I don't know if that's...
Yeah.
Well, but you can win the objective though, right? Because of
true.
the zoning potential. You don't have to get any kills to consistently win the objective with that.
But winning the objective isn't the be-all, end-all in this map either, though.
That's true. It's more about pushing, but and you don't see solo Chromie damage often. But
No, you don't.
I think it would work. I think it would be so oppressive here that it'd be okay. You know, Johanna Arthas. Yeah, it's just like you can't. If you would, you're right, Ryan. I agree that the objective isn't the be all end all. But if you dominate every shrine and they never get one, you're probably gonna win. You know.
That's going to come down to execution, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can fail pretty epically, too.
You'd be putting a really high burden of execution on your Chromie player, which is the one thing I didn't like about the Chromie. As soon as you saw the Uther, you knew they were going double support, and if they go double tank, double support, they can't go a mage. It's
right.
Well, they can, but it's very fragile in terms of execution. That has to be really, really perfect.
They have to be good. They have to be melee. Yeah.
So, and Leftovers has been running double tank. So if you've been scouting them, you would know that they like double tank on the shrines. And same situation, Good Guys had more information on Leftovers than Leftovers should have had on Good Guys, because Good Guys was locked into the Crucible weeks ago. Right. Whereas Leftovers had to play their games recently on the recent patch in full public casted view.
Right, that's true. It was all available information. Yeah, but Team Good Guys does end up, speaking of Team Good Guys, they ran out their team with a Kael'thas and a Muradin. I like the Muradin, and actually someone brought it up in chat. I would have liked the Muradin last draft too. Against the Stukov. You're like,
way better than the Diablo.
I do not care about your silent circle, man. I'm just jumping over it and stunning you. Like, yeah. So nice pickups there. I like the Kael'thas is interesting to me. Obviously the nice shrine AOE and all that, but they have shrine clear like madness. Team Good Guys does, like, it's a lot.
It's Infernal Shrine. Like the Punishers on Infernal Shrines, the first two are arguably a little weak, but they scale really well. It's basically the second strongest map objective in the entire game. So Battlefield of Eternity is number 1.
Right.
Infernal Shrines is number 2. Tomb is arguably number 3. So if your team can guarantee that you win the objective every single time, it becomes really oppressive as the game goes on. You start losing structures automatically. The map opens up on your side, but the enemy team always has all their structures, which means their passive retreat are really short and safe for every subsequent objective, and it results in a massive snowball.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we kind of have a similar situation as the last game, where one team has a lot of setup potential at the shrine, and the other team needs to get in there, right? But I think that the Muradin certainly changes the calculus there. Yeah. That that Heroes Hearts didn't
I'm actually
game.
disappointed I didn't think of it during the first draft, because it's like pretty much perfect, you know. It's
well,
like,
I mentioned it.
Yeah, he did. We briefly touched on it, but
I don't remember you mentioning Muradin.
You asked what tank would I want instead, and I was like, well, Muradin and Anubarak.
I do remember the Anubarak.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, well, but I still didn't think of it. That's how behind I am. Even though you said it to me, I still didn't think of it.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually, but it is a really nice pickup against this sort of thing. So really good, and this is
plus Sonya can close the gap too, right? I mean, there's just more tools here.
Yes.
To break that kind of wall that they can put up around the shrine. So.
Yeah. So they do need their damage dealer on the side of leftovers, and they pick up the Lunara. So taking a look at this Lunara against the team that they are facing, I would assume she went Thornwood Vine. I don't know, but
I believe she did.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the only way to justify this Lunara pick is with Thornwood Vine, because they have the single support Rhaegar kind of thing going on. Yeah,
so
what do you think?
My problem with Leftovers Comp, now that we see the entire thing, is they'll win a protracted team fight eventually. Mm-hmm. It could take like 3 or 4 minutes, but it'll happen. Unfortunately, clearing the shrine doesn't take 3 or 4 minutes. It takes like a minute and a half.
Right.
And they won't win in a minute and a half, which means they're going to lose the shrines
this is like,
and over and over again.
This is like the ultimate, like I haven't seen, it's very common in StarCraft, but this is like the ultimate turtle comp for Leftovers. Like, they just want to turtle up and poke and just like be like impenetrable until.
That's a really good way. That's a really good way of putting it, because Jahan and Arthas are considered wall tanks,
right?
Where they just create a wall, and people can their DPS from the backline can just lob shit over them,
right,
and do damage to the enemy team,
right.
And so they're literally creating a wall with their front line, and then just sustaining it, but they can't ever win the shrine.
Right. So. Where would you like? Where would this Fortress comp be good? Do you think?
Fortress, it's really good on Tomb of the Spider Queen if you have enough wave clear, because then you can always guard the turn-ins, and then the turn-in pushes for you.
Right.
And if they're never turning in, or they're always trying to turn in and failing, that goes on for, we've seen fights over turn-ins go on for literally like 10 minutes on Tomb. Not an exaggeration. We've seen pro game where fight was going on for 10 minutes straight. People trying to turn in, people getting denied. That's really good. This would be a beautiful
tomb comp.
Tomb composition.
Yeah.
First hollow, kind of. Except eventually there's usually split pressure, because usually people are smart enough to draft a global on cursed, and you always have to be like, well, that guy's pushing, and as long as there's enough delay, we won't be able to cap.
Right. The map's too big. Yeah.
It's a little bit worse. Tomb would be an ideal situation for this. Shrines is not it.
I don't really love the Lunara here. Like you said, the damage is too long term.
It's too slow. Also,
yeah.
We don't see this very often. We didn't see it in this game either, but we have seen occasionally Lunara countered by solo support Rhaegar, who takes Earth Living Enchant at 13.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Yeah. Because Lunara gets everyone really low, but then if you don't draft kill pressure, being low doesn't matter. Right. And then Rhaegar's healing efficiency with Earth Living Enchant is enough to match Lunara's damage.
Who would have been a better pickup here? I mean, I need damage badly.
So
rework Zul'jin.
Rework Zul'jin would be a great pickup. Yeah. They can't pick Cassia because Kael'thas just dumpsters her.
What about like Vala?
But they could have picked Vala. Vala would have been the typical hypercarry pick here. Vala into Greymane without shields. You have armor, but you don't have shields.
But you have
risky because of go for the throat.
Maybe Uther. Divine
Shield. You have Uther. That's what I'm talking about. You have the Divine Shield. I think Vala would have been a better pick.
Totally, I would agree with that. It's hard to justify this Lunara in my eyes, because you've built this ultimate hypercarry comp, but she doesn't do. Excuse me. She just doesn't.
She can't.
She doesn't.
She can't finish kills. Yeah. No, the benefit of Vala is that she can start and finish things. Lunara can only start things. Her finish really potential is entirely wrapped up in leap, and it's not as good. It's just not as good as even Q-build, Q-build Vala. Even on Shrines, Q-build Vala would have been stronger.
Yeah. They've done nothing to finish this.
So they did lose this game. Leftovers did.
They did,
but they won the game in a series in 7 games. So
they did.
Obviously, their drafting went a little better, most likely, than some of those other games.
It felt like they really had certain maps where they understood the thing better. I don't think they understood trends.
Right.
So I think that's true in both cases for these drafts, which is why I thought they were interesting, because we have a team in both cases where one team is clearly better, but the other team they're playing against is better on this map, and they understand this map better.
I would actually. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying they're gonna need to figure it out. They're playing in Europe.
That's true.
Right. I mean,
they're with the big boys now.
You can't skate through anymore.
Yeah.
So
got to pick it up for sure. Well, I wish them the best of luck. It's awesome to see new blood in the scene always. And I would like. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say we had a question from chat.
Oh, did we? What is it? Is Stukov underrated by the pro players in HGC because he is rarely played, or is it because Rhaegar Tass is too good, or is it because his healing is slow like Mouse? Well, I had my answer. Why don't you field that one there, Cav?
Stukov isn't really that unpopular, honestly. He's popular in certain maps. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. He has, I think, an overall. Actually, let me do this. Let me check all of HGC and tell you his exact popularity. I think it's in the high 30s, which in my mind is a lot.
Pretty good participation,
HGC.
I think it's one of those things where he has a particular role, and he doesn't have a lot of cross potential.
He's kind of like the ultimate representation of their new direction with hero design, right? Where it's like he does this thing, and he's good at this thing, so you draft him when you need this thing. He's not a generalist.
They're trying to get away from that. Right?
So Stukov's strength is in group sustain. So it's really specific. You have to be together as a group, ideally like 3+ people, to get a lot of good value out of one good spread, which is a really strong talent for him. And you have to be in a situation where there's a map has enough chokes where the zoning potential of his arm is really valuable. Generally, it's most valuable on sieges, so you have to be pushing in, which means that Infernal Shrine is a really good map for him because lots of chokes and the objective siege is for you. Tomb of Spider Queen is really good because there's lots of chokes and the objective siege is for you. Braxis Holdout because you're at least 4 people should always be together for the most part on that map. So there's 3 good maps, and arguably he's one of the best double support heroes on those maps. That's the second problem with Stukov. Stukov is not the best double support in the world, meaning that if you draft Stukov, you're going double support. Not every team plays or wants to play double support, and if they do, they think other heroes are better. So I don't think Stukov's underrated by pro players. I think he's just considered niche.
Right. And so that brings up a question for me. Who do you put on the list of solo healers?
Ooh, that's a mean question. The easy answer there is Rhaegar. Rhaegar is really the only generalist healer that you can draft and be like, solo support.
Yeah,
done.
We're done.
That's it. There's no other healer left. There's no other healer left in the game that really fills that. Lucio is maybe good enough because he has Sound Barrier, so he kind of has a burst save mechanic, but he doesn't have cleanse, which means that he's really vulnerable to stun chain compositions and displacement because you can counter Sound Barrier. Let's break it. No, let's not. You get a point and clicked stunned with an Uther or something, and it just gets negated. It's not happy. Morales I'm comfortable saying that. She lacks cleanse, but she has safeguard.
Yeah.
But your entire team has to play around her energy mechanic, which means there's a lot of big windows that the enemy team can make plays.
And she also has other weaknesses that Radar doesn't have, right? Namely mobility. Mobility, and no personal threat. Rhaegar can win a 1v1 if you dive too deep to try and if you leave your team behind to go on him, Rhaegar can kick your ass. You dive too deep to go on Morales. Morales can ping you with a grenade, and if that's not good enough, she's gonna die to certain heroes just straight up. That's it. Those are the solo healers as far as competitive is concerned.
Right. So then that leads me into the next question. So let's say Blizzard writes you an email and they say, look, I know we've got 300 people on the heroes team, but Cav, we don't like this double support thing. We just don't want it. Can you fix it for us? How do you fix it?
So I'm still from Bakery. Baker articulated this really well. The reason double support is the meta is because supports became too specialized. So you draft one support that's good at saves and one support that's good at sustain, and you can be constantly active on the map, and no one ever dies unless you make a mistake. So if you want supports to go back to being one support, you can unspecialize them. Right. Yeah. Make it so that they have burst save mechanics and they have sustain. Ariel was a sole support until Bursting Light was removed. As soon as Bursting Light was removed and she couldn't heal every 2 seconds, she didn't have the throughput. She still is a good sustain healer, but she didn't have the throughput to make saves to keep people up in big fights. So she became relegated as a sustained healer. She still needs a hope generator. She's also specific drafting requirements, but she's sustained, not save. Give cleanse back to support so that they have any support with cleanse can negate CC chains, which result in kills.
Right.
If you don't have cleanse, you can't do that.
So if that's true, and if the cost of taking away double support is to do that, then I guess I'm for double support, because the problem with that is if you make heroes generalists, then they're all homogenized, right? Like how many interesting supports can you really make that are generalists? You probably can't make that many, so
I agree with you completely, and that's why I don't think the double support meta is gonna go anywhere for a long time.
But that doesn't mean we won't get more variety, right? I mean, I think the hero.
They're releasing more supports. They have Anna now. Anna's another really good double support here.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
And you know what? I didn't like it at first because I just wasn't used to it, and like streamers complain about it. I was like, yeah, this is lame. Nobody ever dies. But like now, I'm kind of like, I'm okay with the double support because the double support dynamics are interesting. There's a lot of ways to screw it up. There's a lot of ways to execute.
Well, especially in the draft. Since we're on a draft show, we might as well mention you can screw up double support in the draft.
Right, which I said earlier. Lucio Malf. It's just like there's no actual healing here. It's just trickling everywhere.
Well, what I like now that I think we have more than we did before is that when we looked at double support, I feel like the differences in the support heroes, especially in the newer ones, is far more different than the damage differences we see in new assassin
the variety is huge.
Yeah. I think that it's more fun to watch and the mechanics are more interesting, right? I mean, still need sustain, and I don't know.
Like Vala is very different from Zul'jin, but like other than that, like Vala's, Rainer's not different, like. Whereas the supports, I agree with you. The supports are like, this changes the way the game is played completely when you see this Stukov, or whatever, Anna, So, I agree with you. I've made my peace with double support, and I'm not against it as long as it stays interesting, and to me, it's interesting right now. So, yeah, I'm gonna take a look at this game 5 real quick with the Heroes Hearth.
You want to?
Yeah, just real quick, because I'm curious. 1 second. Where did it go? Oh, I lost it.
The one on Cursed?
Yeah, I think so.
How not to draft against ETC.
Can you put that in the Twitch chat?
I've done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the Twitch chat.
Yeah. We should actually probably put these drafts in Twitch chat. And now that I think about it, just when we're doing it.
Yeah, that's too complicated.
Yeah. All right, so Even in Death has their ETC, and actually, I'll just throw it up on the screen real quick. So Cursed Hollow. Yeah. So Illidan. Whoops, that's not how you spell Illidan. Illidan ban. Morales ban. Abathur Greymane. Abathur Greymane. And then we get a Rhaegar ETC.
I like your narration.
Thanks, man. It helps me focus. Rhaegar ETC. I did that wrong. Whatever, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't have to do it in the right order. I'm just throwing it up there. Tyrael, Uther.
You should have just moved, your window over there. But
shh. This is how I'm doing it. Okay. Dahaka. It's like a minute and a half. You'll be fine. Ariel.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this draft already, though.
Cassia. All right, there you
go. The tendency to want to clump is real.
Yeah. Now let me look at it. Now that I typed it in. So Leftovers has the ETC here, and then we're looking at was it Heroes Hearth? Yeah, Heroes Hearth. Yeah, Heroes Hearth has.
You have the wrong names up, by the way,
Yeah,
too.
that's fine. I don't need to change that.
Okay.
We'll just give them a bad reputation. No, I'll hide them. Leftovers. So Tyrael, Uther, Arthas, Greymane, Abathur. So Abathur's not going to get moshed. That's
But
for
his
sure.
clone might.
His clone.
His clone, in fact, did.
Oh, wow, that's like an all melee comp. Yeah. Okay.
Because his clone doesn't have any options for range.
Right. Wow. So I assume that's what happened. I didn't see the game, but I assume.
Well, the Heroes Hearth actually won this game despite giving up a 5-man mosh, and then a 4-man mosh.
How did that happen?
Because it turns out that fighting 20 to 18 is really dumb.
Tell that to my teammates.
And even in death, fought 20 to 18.
So game knowledge 101 was a little bit of struggle here.
Basically, the only time Heroes Hearth won fights post 10 was when Mosh was on cooldown. But even in death, took a lot of fights where Mosh was on cooldown.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So speaking of even in death, I was really rooting for those guys. I think they definitely, people kind of, they feel like they didn't deserve to be in HGC because they kind of snuck in when a team disbanded at the start of the season. They didn't actually like win the open division, and as it turns out, I watched pretty much every HGC game. They really were kind of outclassed this season, sadly.
Dramatically.
Like you could see it in the games. You were like, these guys are just not worthy of being in this top 8, you know, which is sad because Battery's been on here. I like those guys. But it just wasn't good, man. And I hope they're able to get it together and come back, maybe with a different iteration of the team. But I'd love to see those guys again because
well, they did disband, so
right.
they're not together anymore as far as I know. I imagine we'll see some of the players,
right,
hanging around trying to get on an open team. Maybe they've impressed a team enough to get picked up potentially for any potential roster changes that are going to come out. I imagine. There's a whole rumor mill going around about roster apocalypse right now. Okay. I don't want to repeat any rumors, but there's a lot of people who are apparently switching teams.
Okay. So. Okay. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of after the Tempo Storm Gale Force debacle. I was like, uh-oh, that's going to be some changes there. Like, which it sucks that you have to think that every time something like that happens, but we will see,
But that's not necessarily unhealthy either.
No, I mean change,
to have team movements, right? I mean, that happens in
will
all
tell
pro
you,
sports.
change is progress. Yeah,
it's inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable.
Change is survival.
Well, yeah, survival. That's what it is. Change is survival.
Kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't know that, Danny.
Yeah, my bad. I don't play Dahaka in co-op. I play Stukov. You're the Dahaka guy.
I don't play Dahaka yet.
Yet? Oh, that was my buddy. Never mind. Okay. Dude, I know. Cheated on you in StarCraft co-op.
You did. I'm a little hurt right now.
A little salty. Too bad.
By the way, if you watch this game, there is a moment where Fend basically kills 4 people.
In the mosh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
I've never seen one Fend do so much damage.
Oh, yeah. I feel like Cassia is a hero that should be picked up more at the pro level. I feel like...
Literally, anytime I see Greymane, I'm like, people should just pick Cassia and not let them take a mage, and they'll win the game because Greymane can't kill Cassia and Cassia can kill Greymane.
Right. Yeah. I feel like she's underplayed, and I think it's because she's hard to play. She's hard to play well.
I think her numbers were a little undertuned, but in addition to the fact she's hard to play. But then she got buffs, so people started playing her more, and people were like, oh, this is really good in this situation. If we just play Cassia, we'll win. I think people are starting to play her more. But so this draft, just looking at it, this is how you don't draft against ETC.
Yeah, don't take these into ETC. Yeah.
Literally, their Mosh strategy is hope the Sank works, or hope you can Divine Shield Tyrael to make sure the Sank works, or hope you can self-Divine Shield so that Uther can walk up and stun the Mosh.
Right. That's a lot of hope.
A, that's a lot of resources, and B, due to the nature of their composition, realistically, everyone's getting moshed. Like you're not, no one's gonna not be in the mosh to make that save. Everyone's gonna get power slid or isolated and dragged and stunned and then moshed, and you're dead.
Especially on Cursed Hollow, like there's a lot of opportunity here.
Yeah, the only time your win condition should be hope is if Ariel's on your team, and she is not. So.
Oh man, that was.
But in fact, even in death has Ariel, so they're doomed from the beginning.
It's true. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Just renamed Tyrael Despair.
Despair. Yeah. Good. Good. All right. Well, yeah. I just want to take a look at this real quick, and so yeah.
Go watch it. Check it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
Yeah. I want to see those moshes for sure. Yeah.
I saw some of the clips,
Nice.
but context is always helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so that was Nexus Drafthouse episode 44. We have been joined here tonight by Ryan, Lord of Ascension Tower, as always, and CavalierGuest, analysis master. Extraordinaire, yeah. That's him. So thanks for coming by again, Cav. We always appreciate it. And
happy to be here as always.
if you guys would like to hear a bunch of dudes ramble about Heroes of the Storm and their drafts for an hour and a half, this will be on YouTube, and you can check out the VOD here or on YouTube. Yeah, that link is right over there underneath my webcam there, so you can check it out there.
We don't ramble. We wax poetic.
We wax poetic. You're right. You're not wrong. So yeah, I am Sahara Drac, and you guys can follow Storm Legacy at the Twitter right there. I post Heroes memes. It's a great time.
And a lot of salt. I mean, prepare your palate.
Not really. I don't really.
Oh,
I don't put it on Twitter that much. I really don't.
Yeah, you do. Half your replies are salt.
Oh, replies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will reply all day, but I don't tweet it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Lord of Ascension, and thanks again, Chav, for coming on. That was great. Hopefully we. Are you going to BlizzCon? We're gonna hang out.
I don't know if I'm going to BlizzCon yet.
I hope you do.
Go to BlizzCon, man. Come on.
You should come.
I would like to go to BlizzCon, but at this point it's kind of up to Blizzard because last year they gave me a press pass, and I may get one this year again, but they have not responded to me yet.
Okay. Well,
hopefully soon.
You definitely should have one. You deserve it. So I hope you do, and I hope we see you there for sure. All right,
absolutely,
guys. This was Nexus Drafthouse. I'm gonna shut off the stream now. I've been streaming for like 10 hours, and yeah, I'll be back. I stream here most weekdays, so we'll be back. And thanks for tuning in. All right, see you guys later. Bye.
All right.